Hello and welcome to another edition of Bombchu News. My name is Chris, I'm joined by Andron, and today we'll be covering the news that we found interesting.
Over the break, a unique indie game concept launched named Meditations. Meditations is led by a group of indie developers and aims to provide a short, 5-minute or so game a day along with text that will provide inspiration, a lesson, or just a nice distraction. One of the key developers, Rami Ismail, tweeted that the types of games you can expect range from puzzle titles and platformers to more personal games focused on emotion. The game for January 2nd, 2019 was accompanied with a quote explaining how it feels to be an introvert who is constantly drained by social interactions until they finally reach a wall where they must retreat to regain energy and try again. The game itself has the player drag the mouse out from the center and a little green circle begins to expand and redden until it hits its cap. If the cap is hit, it stops you from being able to do anything else or retreats back to safety. This was a very clear metaphor to what the developer is trying to convey in their quote, and if this is what Meditations has to offer, it's something right up my alley. If you're interested in trying out Meditations for yourself, I've put a link in the description below. As an FYI though, the initial download is super slow, so expect to wait at least a few minutes before playing.
Artifact ended 2018 outside of Steam's top 100 most played games. Valve's entry into the card game market has been met with trouble since it first launched back in November. Things were beginning to look promising a few weeks ago when Valve listened to community feedback and began nerfing some of the cards, as well as adding a ranked progression system and ways for players to earn more cards without buying them. However, Artifact's bad first impressions seem to be sticking with players, as the game has slowly dropped in players ever since launch. By the time 2018 came to a close, Artifact was down to around 3,000 concurrent players, with a 24-hour peak of only 6,000. While I've enjoyed the little bit of time I've put into Artifact so far, and would love to spend more time with the game, that might be kind of difficult if Valve doesn't do something to bring old players back and get even more new ones in.
Square Enix's president is kicking 2019 off with a list of promises for the publisher-developer. In a letter to shareholders released January 1st, Square Enix president Yosuke Matsuda spoke on his aim for the company in the coming years. The three topics he touched on are the spread and adaptation of technologies, rapid adaptation to new platforms, and aggressive expansion in overseas markets. There is a bit to pick through, but the parts I found most interesting are the following. Square is excited about the emergence of capable streaming providers and is interested in those platforms in addition to the next generation of consoles. The rapid adaptation covers both statements and goes a step further with the mention of VR and blockchains as additional sources of interest for the company. New technology seemed to be the focal point of this letter, but it does appear that Square has money on its mind as it will be restarting its dormant Indian branch. This last move is actually very interesting as although America, Japan, and Europe have been the primary focus when it comes to video game sales, recently China has become a little more liberal, allowing Nintendo and other developers to release specialized games, opening a market of over 1 billion people that has not been tapped for decades. India had the second highest estimated population in 2018, and Square reopening a branch within that area will give them a presence there, as well as an easier way to selling their software to the country's people. Square's recent success has been more from publishing than development, so these moves appear to align more with that side of the business. Hopefully this approach pays off as rapid expansion and adaptation can cause some companies to spread too far too fast and end up having to shutter or sell off subsidiaries to stay afloat.
Fans of Dragon Ball FighterZ might not have to worry about support for the popular fighting game much longer. Even though FighterZ was one of the most popular fighting games of last year, and one of my personal favorite games of 2018, tournament support seemed to be dropping for the game. After multiple community events were cancelled, and the game went absent from EVO Japan's lineup, rumors began to circulate that the game might have very little presence on the fighting game esports scene. Today, Tekken director and producer Katsuhiro Harada made an announcement that should put the game's fans at ease. Harada announced that he had become the leader and supervisor of the Bandai Namco fighting game esports strategy team, which he stated is committed to growing both the official tournament and community event scenes for Tekken, Soul Calibur, and Dragon Ball FighterZ. This is great news, as Dragon Ball FighterZ had the highest viewership peak during EVO 2018 and seemed ready to take over the fighting game community as one of the top games in the genre. Last year ended with Dragon Ball FighterZ Fate in limbo, but 2019 is already looking up for the anime fighter. Well, that's all the news that we found interesting today. Let us know what you thought about it down in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.